Hey guys, what's up? I'm back with another video, finally. Sorry it took so long, but today I'm actually going to be talking to you guys about how to get your first apartment, period. We're going to talk about all of that. Just tips, what you need to do, like what you need to look for, things you need to consider, how to go about things, what certain things mean. So this is going to be like a jam-packed like video. On great information, guys. Great information. So, all right. So I got my book. I have my notes. So bear with me. I want to make sure I cover everything. Okay. So first, we're gonna talk about budget. Now, when you're first looking for an apartment, right? You want to have a budget. What can you really afford? So, like, basically, what do you want to have in your apartment? Like, do you want to have a washer? Do you want to have a dryer? Do you want to have hardwood floors? Like, think about what all is important to you to have accessible to you in your apartment. Like, whether it's a washer and dryer in the unit, or at least it needs to be like in the complex or something. You want to determine your must-haves in your apartment, because your must-haves your must-haves in your apartment, a lot of the time they can alter the price, whether it's up or down. Like, if you want to be on the bottom floor, if you want to be on the first floor, usually apartments on the first floor are cheaper than the apartments on the top floor. The apartments on the top floor are usually more expensive because you got a view. So you have to consider those things and think about what can you actually afford. What I would do is make a list of properties. Location also alters the price as well. So if you want to live downtown, you're probably going to be paying more money than if you were to live on the countryside somewhere. So you have to think about stuff like that too. Like, okay, because you might have to sacrifice a little bit just because you want to, to stay in your budget. Don't go outside your budget. We want to save money. We want to save money. Do the smarter things versus doing things for a look. Do what's smart. Do what's smart. Do what you can afford, and save money. Figure out if you want a roommate. Do you want to live by yourself? That goes into budget. Like, do you want to live by yourself, or do you want to get a roommate? If you want to live a little bit better, maybe I need to get a roommate. So you have to figure out and weigh your options. Figure out what makes sense for your lifestyle and how you want to live. Next, after you make your list of apartments, because you should make a list of apartments to go look at, go tour, go visit, all of that. Put however many on there you want. Don't overwhelm yourself. Do about a good 10. Do about a good 10 that you like. Whether you're moving out of state, whether you're moving in state. When you're touring, right? When you're touring, it's important to look for these things. Like, when you're touring, first and foremost, it's important to ask certain questions too. Like, are there any move-in specials going on right now? Like, is it maybe $200 off of the first month rent? Like, what's going on that might make you want to choose this apartment complex over the other one on your list? Find out of course, definitely get the rate. How much is this apartment going for? And then once they quote you that rate, you got that rate. At least for, like, I think a time period. But clarify that and ask them. But once they give you that rate, that's what you got. And then also figure out, like, how long you want to stay in that apartment. Because usually the longer the lease is, the cheaper it's gonna be. Like, when you start getting into, like, I only want to stay here for 3 months, or I want to stay here month to month, or usually when you do things like that, that's when the apartment is gonna be higher in price. That usually the rates change depending on, like, how long you're staying there, if that makes sense, because they want to make the most money possible, to be honest with you. So if you want to stay in a place for 6 months, it's going to be cheaper than whether you stay there for 12 months. So think about that stuff too when you're touring. Like, okay, is this somewhere where I could stay if it's cheaper for the 12-month lease? Is this somewhere where I could stay here for 12 months and be okay? When you're touring, you want to ask about their deposit. You want to know how much their deposits are, what kind of deposit options they have. Because I know when I applied for my apartment here, I was able to do like, because I don't really, they have different options sometimes for security deposits. A lot of the time, the security deposit is gonna be the first month's rent. Or a lot of the time, the security deposit is just depending upon your credit and what your credit is doing currently. So definitely try to have decent credit like when you're applying for apartments, so you can kind of get the best deals. Like, be kind of working on that prior to getting an apartment. I mean, you can definitely still get an apartment with like not the greatest credit, but you might not get the apartment you necessarily want, or it might just be a lot harder and you might have to pay more money up front because they want to make sure that they're going to get paid. So you're going to have to kind of jump through more hoops. The more the more, or the how do I put this in words? The worse your credit is. Like, the worse your credit is, you're gonna have to pay more money, if that makes sense. So I know with my apartment, sometimes they have smaller deposits, and not every place does this. Like, this was the first thing that was offered to me, like, or the first time it was offered to me in Georgia, because I live in Atlanta. So like, I didn't know you could do this with security deposits. Like, I used to live in LA, and when I was in LA, like, our deposit was like $1,500. You know, and then our rent was like $2,000. So it just depends. Like, you have to ask what their security deposit is. But here they gave me the option of paying like a smaller.
I'm not sure what this is called. Don't
get mad at me. But like, because I looked for it and I searched for it and I tried to do research myself on it to try to see what exactly this type of security deposit was called. But like, it's basically, I paid a cheaper deposit. But the thing is, because you know, the purposes of a security deposit is it covers any damages. They hold on to that security deposit like while you're throughout your lease. You get the security deposit back after your lease is up, but you may not get the whole thing back depending on what the damages are and what's going on. So that security deposit is for them to hold. They hold it in case, oh, you had a party and they put a hole in the wall. Like, oh, you had a party or something, you know, like whatever type of damage you do to the apartment, that security deposit is held and it goes towards that damage. But the security deposit that I chose was a smaller one, which was only like $200 that I had to pay just because it was a cheaper route for me. But I don't really have parties like that. I don't really have people over. I don't really have like a lot going on in general. So I would only advise, because the thing is, if I put a hole in the wall, I have to now pay for that out of pocket when I move out. And that's on me. And that's because of the type of security deposit that I did. But I'm not really worried about it because don't nobody coming up and through here. So I'm not really upset. You know, I'm not worried. But figure out what options you have, what type of options they offer as far as the security deposit goes, so you can get the cheaper route, or so you can go the cheaper route, sorry, is what I'm trying to say. And stay in the budget. Next, ask about their application fees. Sometimes move-in specials have specials with the application fee. So sometimes you get a free application fee if you apply today, or like a free application if you apply today. Like, it depends. Like, every apartment complex is different. During different times of the year, they have different specials, different things going on. So see if they have anything going on with an application fee. Sometimes, you know, application fees range from like $100 to $200, depending, maybe $50 sometimes. Depends on where it is. But or like, yeah, it just depends. But you have to pay. The application fee is not something that you get back. The application fee is something that you have to pay for. You have to pay to apply. So pick and choose what apartments you don't just go and I'm gonna apply to this one. I'm gonna apply to this one. I'm gonna apply to this one. Apply to only the ones you really want, because you have to pay an application fee. Like, I'm not saying it's gonna be an expensive application fee, because it depends, but like, it really just, you have to ask these questions when you go. Like, you have to make sure, write down a list of questions. That's what I would advise you to do before you go and you look at apartments. Or even if you don't look, like, say if you're in, I don't know, if you're in Boston and you're looking at apartments in California, like, and you can't physically go because I know we're in a pandemic, like, you want to call and you want them, you can ask for pictures. You can call the apartment complex, hey, I saw da 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 online, like I want a virtual tour. They have virtual tours that they can give you. I'm sure whether it's on Skype or whether they just send you pictures and like actual up close pictures of the actual unit that you want, like they'll send it to you through email if you ask. And you can do it that way. Say if you're looking from Boston, like, oh, I want to get an apartment in California, but I'm nervous because I'm not there. Just make sure you ask these questions. And what I would do too, because California be getting you sometimes with the apartments out there, because I would have somebody, if you know somebody, a friend in that state or whatever, like, hey, can you go through and look at that apartment? You know what I like, go through and look at it for me, see if it's something that I'm gonna mess with, like, you know, like, if you can do that, use your resources because you need them. Like when you're looking for apartments, you need to use your resources. So yeah, but you have unlimited resources when you're looking. Usually the security deposit safe is not really due until you're ready to move in that day. Like you have to have like your security deposit and your first month's rent ready for when on move-in day. Now up front, usually you'll just have to have the application fee to apply, which is gonna be however much they tell you. And then they're also gonna run a credit check when they do the application fee with you, or like when they do the application say if you want to do it there, you can, or you can go home and do it, you know, like they have online stuff, like it's up to you, but usually that's when they do the credit check too. Now let me tell you about the credit. Like I was saying earlier, like try to have good credit if you can, because it's better if you have good credit. It's a lot better if you have it versus if you don't, because you're gonna have to pay more money if you don't. But if you get approved for the apartment, cool. But here's the catch, right? Here's the catch. Next, usually apartments require you to make a certain amount of money in order to live there. So like say if, like I'm just gonna use my apartment for an example. I'm living here and I have to make double my rent in order to live here. So you have a couple options, because a lot of people, you know, say if your rent is like $2,000, right? Oh my God, what do I do? So you have a couple options. Pick a cheaper apartment. Unless you can afford that, go for it. But I'm just saying, that's one option. Pick a cheaper apartment. Two is they have other options as far as guarantors. So what that means is, say if you have a parent or an uncle, grandma, whoever, sister, cousin, brother, whoever you need to have be a guarantor on your apartment. So that means if you don't pay rent, they're responsible for it. So it's going to be a little bit harder. Sometimes a lot of people don't want that responsibility because they have to get their credit ran too. And a lot of people don't want that on their credit report, like, oh, I have to pay, I'm responsible for this house or this apartment, and I don't want to have to be responsible for it if you don't keep up with your bills, you know? So that's going to be the hard part as far as getting a guarantor, to someone to commit to that. But how that works too is they take your income plus the guarantor's income, but a lot of the time the guarantor has to be able to make 3,000 or 3 times the rent by themselves. Say if, you know, your mom balling, like, then you good. Like if your mom wants to do that for you, like, cool. But that's just an option, because the guarantor, a lot of the time alone, they have to make that much. My parents have never been a guarantor on any of my apartments, but that's just an option. Or what you can do is you can also have them on your lease as a roommate. You can have up to, a lot of the time, sometimes they have a maximum amount of people that can live in that one vicinity, but sometimes they don't. So just see what their guidelines are and do what you need to do. Think about certain preferences, like when you're looking and when you're touring, like, okay, do I want sunlight to hit my living room? Do I need lots of windows? Am I gonna take pictures? Do I just like sunlight in my apartment because it makes me feel more energized? Like, you want to think about stuff like that too when you're looking for an apartment. definitely when you're going on an apartment tour and like when you're looking at these places, make sure you check like their appliances, like ask lots of questions when you're touring. Like I would check your cell phone service because that's a thing. Like that's sometimes it's bad. Like when you're looking for apartments, like check your cell phone service, see what kind of service you got going on in your apartment. Ask about utilities, see what's covered, what's not covered, what do you have to go and get yourself. Do you have to pay? Is the Wi-Fi included? Is the gas and water and electric, is all that included, or do I have to go and set up something somewhere else? Like these are all important questions that you should ask them when you're there. See what type of amenities do you have. Do they have a gym? Do they have a pool? Like, are these things important to you? Also, like what I was saying about sacrifices. So sometimes depending on the cost of everything, you might not get to have a pool the first time around, you know, you might not get to, but make it a point the next time you move, like, oh, I'm gonna have a pool next time, but I'm just gonna make sure my pockets are right so I can have a pool. Things that you'll also need when you're applying. They're gonna ask you for things like a valid ID. They're gonna ask you for things like your social security card. They're gonna ask you for bank statements. They're gonna ask you for your last 3 or 4 pay stubs, or maybe 2, 3, or 4. Either one of those numbers. They're gonna ask for some pay stubs. Like they're gonna ask for you to prove that you're making the type of money that you're making. As far as move-in, when you're moving in, on the day that you're moving in, what they're supposed to do is your landlord or your leasing agent, whoever you have, is supposed to walk the apartment with you, and then you're gonna have a checklist. Like walk that apartment, please do. Like walk the apartment, see like, okay, are there any cracks in the cabinets? Like, are there any? Write down all the damages. They're supposed to walk with you so they can see the damage too, like prior to, you know, and then you can always add stuff later because sometimes you might not see it. So they should give you the paper to take home with you after walking through it the first time. Like they should give you that paper to go back and be like, okay, I'm seeing this, now I'm seeing this, because you might not catch everything the first time. So they should give you that paper to write stuff down, and then you give it back to them whatever time period they give you to give it back to them in. But all that pretty much does is allows for, because it goes back to the deposit, like what do I have to pay for when I leave? Because if you don't document that, they're gonna think you did it, and then they're gonna charge you for it later. So it's definitely good to write all that stuff down in the beginning. Even when you move out, they're supposed to also walk the apartment with you again. But that's just another tip, guys. Another tip. You definitely want to quality check. You want to quality check your apartment. Like, make sure the faucets work. Like, what's the water pressure looking like? Flip the switches on. You might not have a switch in your bedroom, and you might be confused when you move later, and you're like, okay, I thought there was a light in here. There should be a light in here. Why isn't there a light in here? You know, you have to really look. Like, you gotta really look. Because you'll be shocked, like a lot of the time, like I don't got a light in my room, I gotta get a lamp. Yes, you have to get a lamp. What you can do is you can have like a leasing agent or something like that, like whoever you're working with, whoever you're assigned to. Like, how much am I looking at roughly a month? You know, they're able to calculate that for you. And see like on their end, you know, like despite, say if they don't do power, you have to do power somewhere else. That's kind of based on your usage. But like, roughly they can give a rough estimate. Like you're gonna have the base rent, but you're gonna have other things to pay for too, like whether it's trash, like whether it's other services and other things that they have along with rent. So you're gonna have the base pay, and then you're gonna have some extra fees on top of those. Figure out what those fees are, ask them what these fees are, and they're able to kind of calculate roughly how much you're gonna look at the end of the month, because your rent might be like $12.95, and then you might end up paying $13.75 for everything. So you have to make sure and see like, what am I looking at as a total. And then all of this will definitely help you narrow down your list as well. Like when you have a list of apartments that you're looking at, all of it's gonna help you narrow all that stuff down. So definitely make sure you're looking at all of that, and you know, like then you can make an educated decision on like, what am I gonna do? Like, what am I gonna pick? What am I gonna choose? And yeah, all right. And also make sure to ask what the move-in fees are too. Like they can, along with the total cost monthly that you'll have. Also ask them like what is the total cost of everything that you're going to be looking at when you move in, because you are going to have some additional fees that you might have to pay for, whether it's parking, like all of this stuff. Every apartment complex is going to be totally different, but you're just going to have to ask certain questions so that you can get certain things answered and figure out what this particular apartment complex, what you have to pay for. If you have like any pets, you're gonna want to definitely ask like, okay, what's your pet policy? What is the pet fee? Like what kind of things go on in regards to your pets? If you have a dog, if you have a cat. So because a lot of time you have to pay a pet deposit, you got to see how much your pet deposit is going to be too. Definitely ask like, what are the lease terms? You know, like, okay, can I Airbnb my spot? You know, you might get in trouble for that. Like, you have to ask like what your lease terms are, because those are going to be different too. Also, you're going to have to ask renter's insurance. You're gonna have to ask about renter's insurance. Is it required? Most places it's required. You have to pay for renter's insurance. It's a lot of different fees that you have to pay for when you're first moving in somewhere. You want to ask about their guest policy. Like, what are their guest policies like? What is it like as far as visitors? Because I know some people, like some places don't allow you to have visitors for more than 2 weeks. I know it's your spot, you pay for it, but like they're like, hey, they're here for 2 weeks, they live in here, they're not on the lease. You gotta put them on the lease, like something, you know, like that's how most apartments are, and you have to figure out what their guest policy is. You also want to ask how you pay rent. A lot of times it's either going to be online, they have some type of portal that you have to use to pay rent, or if they don't have a portal for you to use, then you gotta turn in a money order. Is usually the spiel. Ask how repairs are taken care of. Like, do you have a 24-hour maintenance team? And then you also want to consider like, or figure out if rent goes up. Like, is this a rent controlled apartment? Like, and what I mean by rent control is, say if you want to stay there 2 years. Oh my God, I really like it here. Okay, how much, or what's the percentage that it's gonna go up the next year? Like, is it gonna stay the same rent, or is it gonna go up? What am I gonna have to do next year? You know, or however long you decide your lease term is gonna be. Another question to ask is like, is there a penalty for breaking the lease? Like, say if you decide you don't like it, what are the terms of me breaking this lease? A lot of the time you'll have to pay like, I think it's 2 months or 3 months of rent or something to leave the lease, to break it. You know, you'll have to pay a lot of money usually to leave the lease. But, and I mean, I'm sure if they have some type of issue and it's them and not you, there's probably some type of exception. There should be. Like, if it's them and not, you know, just something that you just don't like, or a personal problem to make you have to leave. Like, I'm sure if it's them and an issue with their apartment, and it's like, I have to leave because y'all have a roach infested like apartment, I need to leave now, and like, you know, like, I'm sure that is probably different to where it's like, okay, like, yeah, you could break the lease, I understand, but see what it is. Ask that question. I would ask that question too, like, to see, like, you know, and quote them, like, who told you this? This person told me this. Document everything. Ask, do you have pest control? Because I don't play with no bugs. Like, I don't play with no bugs. Like, so ask about pest control. Like, you want to ask about things like this to see what is available to you in case you have a problem with it later on. Because you will be mad if they don't have most apartments do. I don't think I've ever encountered an apartment where it's like they don't have pest control, but I haven't lived all over the world, so I don't know. I'm sure other places are different depending on the place. So you want to ask these questions like about their maintenance, like how, you know, like how clean is the apartment? Try to figure that out too, because that's important. That's important to me. It should be important to you. Like, who want to live in a dirty spot? Oh, and also ask about their late fees. Like, okay, if I miss, how long do I have? Like, I know here they don't charge you a late fee until the 4th. You know, like, try to see what is their grace period. Do they have a grace period if you're late for rent? You know, how much do they charge if you're late for rent? And I think that's it. That's pretty much all I have for you guys. So if you guys want to learn more, or if you have more questions about like living on your own, being an entrepreneur, like starting new things in general, like I'm definitely here to answer those questions. I'm definitely creating my channel to be more of a lifestyle kind of channel. The more content that I put out, I definitely am going to be making a lot more, you know, just videos where you guys get to know me for sure. I also do music, so I will be posting more videos related to that as well. Yeah, but stay tuned for the next video. If comment whatever y'all want to see, put it in the comments, and we can make it happen. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Check out my other social media, so like my Instagram and my TikTok or whatever, you know, I'll be on there chatting. I be chatting. But follow me on those, and I will see you guys later. Bye.